The smell hit her first. That perfume. Sweet and heavy like vanilla mixed with something sharper. It was everywhere in her own bedroom, on her pillows, her sheets, even floating in the air like a ghost that wouldn't leave. Sarah stood in the doorway, her grocery bag still in her hands, watching her husband scramble to pull his pants on while a woman with long red hair sat up in their bed, not even trying to cover herself. "Sarah, I can explain," Tom said, his face white as paper. But Sarah wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at the woman in her bed, and her whole world was falling apart in a way she never saw coming. The woman turned around and Sarah felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. It was her sister. Her own baby sister, Jessica. "Hi, sis," Jessica said with a smile that made Sarah's blood run cold. No shame. No sorry. Just that same mean smile Jessica had worn since they were kids, the one that said she always got what she wanted and she didn't care who got hurt. Sarah dropped the grocery bags. Apples rolled across the floor. Milk spilled everywhere. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. This was worse than finding Tom with some stranger. This was her sister. Her family. The person she had trusted most in the world after Tom himself. "How long?" Sarah's voice came out like a whisper. Jessica stretched like a cat and reached for her clothes. "Oh honey, you really want to know?" "How long, Jessica?" 2 years, Jessica said, pulling her shirt over her head. "Maybe 3. Time flies when you're having fun." 3 years. Sarah felt dizzy. 3 years of family dinners where Jessica sat across from her, smiling and laughing. 3 years of Jessica coming over for coffee, using their bathroom, sleeping in their guest room. 3 years of Jessica asking about Tom, about their marriage, pretending to care. "Sarah, please," Tom started, but she held up her hand. "Get out," she said quietly. "Sarah dash. Get out." The scream came from somewhere deep inside her, somewhere she didn't know existed. "Both of you. Get out of my house right now." Tom grabbed his shirt and shoes. Jessica took her time, like she was enjoying every second of Sarah's pain. At the bedroom door, Jessica stopped and looked back. "You know, Sarah, you should probably thank me. I mean, Tom was so unhappy. I was just helping him feel better. Isn't that what sisters do?" After they left, Sarah sat on her kitchen floor in the spilled milk and cried until she had no tears left. Then she got up, cleaned the mess and started planning. Because Jessica was wrong about one thing. Sarah knew exactly what sisters do to each other. And she was about to remind Jessica of every lesson she'd forgotten. The next morning, Sarah called in sick to work. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a notebook, making lists. Jessica thought she was so smart, so much better than Sarah. Always had, ever since they were little. Jessica was the pretty one, the fun one, the one everyone loved. Sarah was just the responsible big sister who cleaned up Jessica's messes. But Jessica had made one big mistake. She thought Sarah was weak. Sarah picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found what she was looking for. Jessica's boss at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Then she found Jessica's landlord. Her ex-boyfriend who still called sometimes. Her college friends who thought she was so perfect. Jessica wanted to play games? Sarah was going to show her how games were really played. She started with the law firm. A simple phone call. "Hi, this is Sarah Chin from Downtown Medical. I'm calling about Jessica Murphy? She's been coming in for treatment, and we've been trying to reach her about some test results, but she's not returning our calls. Her employment verification lists you as her supervisor." The woman on the phone sounded concerned. "Treatment? What kind of treatment?" "Jessica hasn't mentioned any medical issues." "I'm sorry, I can't give out specific information. Privacy laws, you know. But it is important that she comes in. Could you please have her call us right away?" Sarah hung up and smiled for the first time in 24 hours. Jessica hated when people thought she was sick or weak. She spent so much money on gym memberships and vitamins and organic food, all so she could tell everyone how healthy she was. Her boss asking questions about mystery medical treatments would drive her crazy. But that was just the beginning. Next, Sarah called Jessica's landlord. She'd heard Jessica complaining about him before, how he was always looking for reasons to cause trouble for his tenants. "Hi, Mr. Rodriguez. This is Sarah Murphy, Jessica's sister. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Jessica asked me to call because she's been having some financial troubles lately, and she's worried about making rent on time. She didn't want you to be surprised if the payment was late." Financial troubles? But she just signed a new lease for the bigger apartment upstairs. Sarah felt a little spark of interest. "Oh, did she? When was that?" "Last month. Said she got a big promotion at work, could afford the extra $200 a month. If she's having money problems already?" I'm sure it's just temporary, Sarah said sweetly. But you know Jessica. She's always been bad with money. I just thought you should know. After she hung up, Sarah sat back in her chair and thought about what she'd learned. A new apartment last month. Right around the time Tom had been working late more often, around the time he'd stopped touching her, stopped talking to her about anything that mattered. Her phone rang. It was her mom. Sarah, honey, are you all right? Jessica called me crying, said you two had some kind of fight. Sarah closed her eyes. Of course Jessica had called their mother. She always did when she wanted sympathy, wanted someone to take her side. What did she tell you, Mom? She said you accused her of something terrible, something about Tom. Sarah, what's going on? Sarah could hear the worry in her mother's voice, and for a moment she felt bad. Her parents didn't deserve to get dragged into this mess. But Jessica had made that choice when she decided to sleep with Sarah's husband. Mom, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest. Has Jessica been asking you for money lately? There was a pause. Well, yes, actually. She said she wanted to make some improvements to her apartment, make it more comfortable. Why? How much money, Mom? Sarah, I don't think dash. How much? $5,000. But Sarah, what does this have to do with dash? Sarah felt sick. Their parents didn't have much money. $5,000 was a lot for them, probably came out of their retirement savings. And Jessica had taken it to make her love nest with Tom more comfortable. Mom, I have to go. But don't give Jessica any more money, okay? Promise me. Sarah, you're scaring me. What's happening? I'll call you later and explain everything. Just, don't give her any more money. After she hung up, Sarah made another note in her notebook. Jessica had been planning this for a while, getting money from their parents, moving to a bigger place. This wasn't just an affair. This was Jessica trying to steal Sarah's whole life. But Sarah wasn't going to let that happen. She picked up her phone again and started making more calls. 3 days later, Sarah was sitting in a coffee shop across the street from Jessica's law firm when her phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessica. We need to talk. What did you do? Sarah smiled and took a sip of her coffee. Through the window, she could see Jessica pacing back and forth on the sidewalk outside her office building, phone pressed to her ear. Even from this distance, Sarah could tell her sister was upset. Her phone rang. What the hell did you do, Sarah? Jessica's voice was high and angry. I don't know what you mean. Don't play dumb with me. My boss is asking all kinds of weird questions about my health. My landlord thinks I'm broke. And now Mom is calling me crying, asking if I'm in some kind of trouble. Sarah felt warm satisfaction spreading through her chest. Sounds like you are in trouble. This is ridiculous. I know you're mad about Tom, but dash. Mad? Sarah's voice was calm, which seemed to make Jessica even more nervous. Jessica, I'm not mad. Mad is what you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic. What I feel about you sleeping with my husband for 3 years is something completely different. Look, Sarah, I know how it looked, but you don't understand. Tom and we have something special. We didn't mean for it to happen, but dash. Stop. Sarah watched Jessica through the window, saw her freeze on the sidewalk. Don't insult me by pretending this was some kind of accident. You wanted him, so you took him. Just like you've always taken everything you wanted from me. That's not fair. Remember when we were kids, Jessica? Remember my stuffed elephant, the one Grandma made for me before she died? You wanted it, so you told Mom I said you could have it. When I tried to get it back, you said I was being selfish. Jessica was quiet. Or how about my first boyfriend in high school? Danny Rodriguez. Remember him? We dated for 6 months and then suddenly he was asking you to prom instead. You told me it wasn't your fault he changed his mind. Sarah, we were teenagers. That was different. Was it? Because it seems like the same pattern to me. You see something I have, something that makes me happy, and you decide you want it. The only difference is this time, you didn't just take my toy or my boyfriend. You took my husband. You took my marriage. You took my family. Sarah could see Jessica wiping her eyes now. Good. Let her cry. But here's what you didn't count on, Jessica. I'm not a kid anymore. And I'm not going to just let you have what's mine. What are you going to do? Sarah hung up. That afternoon, she drove to the office building where Tom worked. She'd been married to him for 8 years, had been to dozens of company parties and events. She knew exactly who to talk to. Tom's assistant Linda had always liked Sarah. She was a grandmother type who brought cookies to work and remembered everyone's birthdays. She also knew everything that happened in the office. Sarah. What a nice surprise. Tom didn't mention you were coming by. Sarah smiled sadly. He doesn't know. I wanted to surprise him, but I think I might have gotten the timing wrong. He's been working so many late nights lately, I thought maybe I could take him to dinner. Linda's face changed slightly. Late nights? Oh yes, almost every night for the past few months. Big project, he said. I'm so proud of how dedicated he is to his work. Linda looked uncomfortable. Sarah, honey, can we talk for a minute? In private? They went to an empty conference room and Linda closed the door. Sarah, I don't know how to say this, but Tom hasn't been working late. He leaves at 5:30 every day, same as always. Sarah felt her heart sink, even though she'd expected this. Hearing it confirmed still hurt. Are you sure? Positive. And Sarah? Linda looked even more uncomfortable. A few months ago, I saw him at a restaurant downtown with a woman. A redhead. I didn't want to say anything because it wasn't my business, but when you mentioned the late nights. What restaurant? Antonio's. The fancy Italian place on 5th Street. They looked close. Sarah nodded and stood up. Thank you for telling me, Linda. I know that wasn't easy. Sarah, I'm so sorry. If there's anything I can do. There is one thing. Could you not mention that I was here? I need some time to figure out what I'm going to do. After she left Tom's office, Sarah drove to Antonio's. She'd been there before. It was expensive, romantic, the kind of place Tom used to take her for anniversaries. The hostess remembered her. Mrs. Chen. How nice to see you. Will your husband be joining you tonight? Actually, I wanted to ask you about something. My husband's been coming here lately for business dinners, and I wanted to make sure his clients were happy with the service. A woman with red hair. The hostess smiled. Oh yes, she's lovely. They come in every Thursday night. Such a sweet couple. Always ask for the corner table. Every Thursday night. Sarah felt sick. That was her and Tom's old tradition, Thursday date nights. He'd stopped suggesting them about 6 months ago, said he was too busy at work. They do seem very happy together, the hostess continued. Last week he even had champagne sent to the table. I think they were celebrating something. Celebrating. While Sarah was at home alone, wondering why her husband seemed like a stranger, Tom and Jessica were celebrating their affair at the restaurant where he used to take her. Sarah drove home in a daze. She sat in her driveway for a long time, looking at the house she'd shared with Tom for 5 years. They'd painted the front door blue together the summer after they got married. They'd planted the rose bushes by the porch steps on their 3rd anniversary. Now all of it felt like a lie. Her phone buzzed. A text message from Tom, working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, okay. Love you. But she didn't mean it anymore. That night she didn't sleep. Instead, she sat at her computer and started researching. Jessica worked at Morrison, Blake and Associates. Sarah looked up everything she could find about the law firm, their clients, their reputation, their standards for employees. Morrison, Blake and Associates prided themselves on integrity and family values. Their website was full of pictures of their lawyers at charity events, their support for family organizations, their commitment to ethical practice. They would not be happy to know that one of their employees was having a long-term affair with a married man. But Sarah needed proof. Something more than just her word against Jessica's. She thought about the Thursday night dinners, the regular schedule. If Jessica and Tom were creatures of habit, they might be sloppy in other ways too. Sarah picked up her phone and called the one person who might be able to help her get the evidence she needed. Rachel? It's Sarah. I know it's late, but I need a favor. A big one. Rachel had been Sarah's best friend since college. She was also a private investigator who specialized in cheating spouses. Sarah? What's wrong? You sound terrible. Tom's having an affair. With my sister. There was a long silence. Jesus, Sarah. I'm so sorry. How long have you known? 3 days. I caught them in my bedroom. Do you want me to find out how long it's been going on? Get evidence for the divorce. Sarah thought about it. Yes, but not for a divorce. I'm not taking him back, but I'm not sure I want to drag this through court either. I need evidence for something else. What? I want to destroy her life the same way she destroyed mine. Another pause. Sarah, I love you, but I have to ask, are you sure about this? Revenge can get messy fast. I'm sure. She thinks she won, Rachel. She thinks she beat me. I want to show her what losing really looks like. Okay. But we do this smart and legal. No crazy stuff. Just pictures and documentation. Times, places, how long it's been going on. Can you do it? I can do it. Give me a week. After Sarah hung up, she felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Not hope that she could save her marriage, but hope that she could make sure Jessica paid for what she'd done. Jessica had always gotten away with everything. When they were kids, when they were teenagers, even as adults. She was charming and pretty and knew how to make people feel sorry for her. But this time was going to be different. This time, Sarah was going to make sure Jessica faced consequences. A week later, Rachel called with news. "Sarah, you need to see this. Can you meet me at my office?" Sarah's hands were shaking as she drove across town. Rachel's office was in a small building downtown, nothing fancy, but Rachel was good at her job. If anyone could get the evidence Sarah needed, it was her. Rachel was waiting with a thick folder and a serious expression. "Sit down, Sarah. Some of this is going to be hard to see." She opened the folder and spread out photographs across her desk. Sarah's stomach dropped. There was Tom and Jessica at Antonio's restaurant, holding hands across the table. Tom and Jessica going into a hotel together. Tom and Jessica kissing in the parking lot outside Jessica's apartment building. "The affair started 2.5 years ago," Rachel said gently. "I talked to some people at her old apartment complex. The neighbors remembered Tom visiting, sometimes staying overnight. They moved it to her new place about 6 months ago. 2.5 years. Sarah felt numb. "There's more," Rachel continued. "Your sister has been telling people at work that she's in a serious relationship with someone who's going to leave his wife soon. Her coworkers think she's dating some rich guy who's getting divorced. What else? She's been using a credit card that Tom's been paying for. Expensive restaurants, clothes, jewelry. He spent about $15,000 on her in the past year alone. $15,000. Money that came out of their joint savings account, money Sarah thought was going toward their future. And Sarah? There's something else. Something that's going to hurt." Rachel pulled out another photograph. It showed Tom and Jessica at what looked like a jewelry store, Jessica trying on rings. "This was taken 3 days ago. The day after you caught them." Sarah stared at the photo. While she was sitting at home heartbroken, Tom was out buying Jessica jewelry. Maybe even an engagement ring. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this is a lot." Sarah looked up at her friend. "Don't be sorry. This is exactly what I needed." "What are you going to do with it?" Sarah carefully gathered up all the photographs and documents. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Jessica Murphy really is." That afternoon, Sarah made copies of everything. Then she started making phone calls. Her first call was to Morrison, Blake and Associates. She asked to speak to the managing partner, Mr. Morrison himself. "Mr. Morrison, my name is Sarah Chin, and I need to speak with you about one of your employees, Jessica Murphy. It's regarding a serious ethical matter that could affect your firm's reputation." "What kind of ethical matter?" "Celebrating." While Sarah was at home alone, wondering why her husband seemed like a stranger, Tom and Jessica were celebrating their affair at the restaurant where he used to take her. Sarah drove home in a daze. She sat in her driveway for a long time, looking at the house she'd shared with Tom for 5 years. They'd painted the front door blue together the summer after they got married. They'd planted the rose bushes by the porch steps on their 3rd anniversary. Now all of it felt like a lie. Her phone buzzed. A text message from Tom, "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." Sarah stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, "Okay. Love you." But she didn't mean it anymore. That night she didn't sleep. Instead, she sat at her computer and started researching. Jessica worked at Morrison, Blake and Associates. Sarah looked up everything she could find about the law firm, their clients, their reputation, their standards for employees. Morrison, Blake and Associates prided themselves on integrity and family values. Their website was full of pictures of their lawyers at charity events, their support for family organizations, their commitment to ethical practice. They would not be happy to know that one of their employees was having a long-term affair with a married man. But Sarah needed proof. Something more than just her word against Jessica's. She thought about the Thursday night dinners, the regular schedule. If Jessica and Tom were creatures of habit, they might be sloppy in other ways too. Sarah picked up her phone and called the one person who might be able to help her get the evidence she needed. "Rachel? It's Sarah. I know it's late, but I need a favor. A big one." Rachel had been Sarah's best friend since college. She was also a private investigator who specialized in cheating spouses. "Sarah? What's wrong? You sound terrible." "Tom's having an affair. With my sister." There was a long silence. "Jesus, Sarah. I'm so sorry. How long have you known?" 3 days. I caught them in my bedroom. Do you want me to find out how long it's been going on? Get evidence for the divorce." Sarah thought about it. "Yes, but not for a divorce. I'm not taking him back, but I'm not sure I want to drag this through court either. I need evidence for something else." "What?" "I want to destroy her life the same way she destroyed mine. Another pause. Sarah, I love you, but I have to ask, are you sure about this? Revenge can get messy fast. I'm sure. She thinks she won, Rachel. She thinks she beat me. I want to show her what losing really looks like. Okay. But we do this smart and legal. No crazy stuff. Just pictures and documentation. Times, places, how long it's been going on. Can you do it? I can do it. Give me a week. After Sarah hung up, she felt something she hadn't felt in days: hope. Not hope that she could save her marriage, but hope that she could make sure Jessica paid for what she'd done. Jessica had always gotten away with everything. When they were kids, when they were teenagers, even as adults. She was charming and pretty and knew how to make people feel sorry for her. But this time was going to be different. This time, Sarah was going to make sure Jessica faced consequences. A week later, Rachel called with news. Sarah, you need to see this. Can you meet me at my office? Sarah's hands were shaking as she drove across town. Rachel's office was in a small building downtown, nothing fancy, but Rachel was good at her job. If anyone could get the evidence Sarah needed, it was her. Rachel was waiting with a thick folder and a serious expression. Sit down, Sarah. Some of this is going to be hard to see. She opened the folder and spread out photographs across her desk. Sarah's stomach dropped. There was Tom and Jessica at Antonio's restaurant, holding hands across the table. Tom and Jessica going into a hotel together. Tom and Jessica kissing in the parking lot outside Jessica's apartment building. The affair started 2.5 years ago, Rachel said gently. I talked to some people at her old apartment complex. The neighbors remembered Tom visiting, sometimes staying overnight. They moved it to her new place about 6 months ago. 2.5 years. Sarah felt numb. There's more, Rachel continued. Your sister has been telling people at work that she's in a serious relationship with someone who's going to leave his wife soon. Her coworkers think she's dating some rich guy who's getting divorced. What else? She's been using a credit card that Tom's been paying for. Expensive restaurants, clothes, jewelry. He spent about $15,000 on her in the past year alone. $15,000. Money that came out of their joint savings account, money Sarah thought was going toward their future. And Sarah? There's something else. Something that's going to hurt. Rachel pulled out another photograph. It showed Tom and Jessica at what looked like a jewelry store, Jessica trying on rings. This was taken 3 days ago. The day after you caught them. Sarah stared at the photo. While she was sitting at home heartbroken, Tom was out buying Jessica jewelry. Maybe even an engagement ring. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this is a lot. Sarah looked up at her friend. Don't be sorry. This is exactly what I needed. What are you going to do with it? Sarah carefully gathered up all the photographs and documents. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Jessica Murphy really is. That afternoon, Sarah made copies of everything. Then she started making phone calls. Her first call was to Morrison, Blake and Associates. She asked to speak to the managing partner, Mr. Morrison himself. Mr. Morrison, my name is Sarah Chin, and I need to speak with you about one of your employees, Jessica Murphy. It's regarding a serious ethical matter that could affect your firm's reputation. What kind of ethical matter? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Would you have time to meet with me tomorrow? Mrs. Chin, if this is some kind of personal dispute Mr. Morrison, your firm represents family law cases, correct? Divorces, custody disputes, that sort of thing? Yes, we do. Then you'll want to know that one of your paralegals has been actively helping a married man hide assets from his wife during a long-term affair. I have documentation that shows financial fraud and deception that could implicate your firm if it becomes public. There was a long pause. I can see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sarah's next call was to the local newspaper. She'd done some research and found out that the lifestyle reporter, Amanda Torres, had written several articles about workplace ethics and women supporting other women. Sarah thought she might be interested in Jessica's story. Miss Torres, I have a story that I think might interest you. It's about a woman who works in the family law field, someone who helps people with divorces and custody cases, but who's been having a long-term affair with a married man. The hypocrisy angle might be compelling for your readers. Do you have proof? Photographs, financial records, documentation going back over 2 years. I'm interested. Can we meet? Sarah's third call was to Tom's boss. She didn't want to hurt Tom's career. Despite everything, she didn't hate him the way she hated Jessica. But she needed him to understand that there would be consequences. Mr. Park, this is Sarah Chen, Tom's wife. I need to inform you about a situation that might affect Tom's work. He's been having an affair with a paralegal at Morrison, Blake and Associates, and they've been using company time and resources to maintain their relationship. I thought you should know before it becomes public. By the time Sarah finished making calls, she felt exhausted but determined. Jessica had spent 2.5 years thinking she was so clever, so much smarter than Sarah. Tomorrow she was going to find out how wrong she'd been. That evening, Tom came home at his usual time, not late, Sarah noticed. He'd given up pretending to work late now that his secret was out. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said. "Do we?" "I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But we can work through this. Marriage counseling, whatever you want." Sarah looked at her husband, really looked at him. He was still handsome, still the man she'd fallen in love with in college. But there was something different in his eyes now, something selfish and weak that she'd never noticed before. "Tom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to keep lying until you figured out how to leave me for her?" Tom's face went red. "It's not like that, Sarah. Jessica and we never planned for this to happen. It just did." "For 2.5 years?" He looked surprised that she knew how long it had been going on. "You've been planning to leave me, haven't you? The jewelry shopping, the new apartment, taking money out of our savings account to pay for her credit card. How did you dash? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that you made your choice. You chose her. So now you get to live with the consequences." "What does that mean?" Sarah stood up. "It means I'm done, Tom. I'm not going to fight for you, I'm not going to beg you to choose me, and I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. You and Jessica deserve each other. Sarah, please dash. The only thing I want from you is an honest answer to one question. Why her? Why my sister?" Tom was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "She made me feel exciting. Like I was someone special. And I didn't? You made me feel safe, comfortable. But Jessica made me feel alive." Sarah nodded. "It hurt, but at least it was honest." "Okay. Then go be alive with her." "But Tom? You might want to warn her that tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day." "What do you mean?" Sarah smiled. "She'll find out soon enough." After Tom left, he said he was going to stay at Jessica's place. Sarah sat in her quiet house and felt something she hadn't expected. Relief. The marriage was over, but she wasn't sad about it anymore. She was free. And tomorrow Jessica was going to learn that actions have consequences. Sarah woke up early the next morning and got dressed carefully. She put on her best navy blue suit, the one that made her look professional and serious. Today was going to be important and she wanted to look the part. Her first stop was Morrison, Blake and Associates. Mr. Morrison's office was on the top floor, all dark wood and leather chairs. He was a gray-haired man in his 60s who looked like he'd never had fun a day in his life. "Mrs. Chen, please have a seat. You said this was about Jessica Murphy?" Sarah opened her folder and placed the photographs on his desk. "Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be direct. Jessica Murphy has been having an affair with my husband for 2.5 years. During that time, she's been using company resources to maintain the relationship, and she's been lying to her co-workers about her personal life." Mr. Morrison picked up the photographs and studied them. His face got darker with each picture. "These show her with a married man?" "My husband, yes. And here are financial records showing that he's been paying for her expenses, including meals at expensive restaurants during what should have been work hours." Sarah pulled out more documents. "I also have statements from her co-workers indicating that she's been telling people she's dating someone who's about to get divorced, implying that she's in a legitimate relationship rather than an affair." "Why are you bringing this to me, Mrs. Chin? This seems like a personal matter." "Because your firm handles family law. You represent people going through divorces, people who've been betrayed by cheating spouses. How do you think your clients would feel if they knew one of your employees was actively helping a married man deceive his wife?" Mr. Morrison set down the photographs. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm informing you about a situation that could damage your firm's reputation if it becomes public. What you do with that information is up to you." "Are you threatening to make this public?" Sarah smiled. "Mr. Morrison, I don't need to threaten anything. The truth has a way of coming out on its own." After she left the law firm, Sarah drove to the newspaper office. Amanda Torres was younger than Sarah had expected, probably in her early 30s, with short dark hair and intelligent eyes. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for meeting with me. You said you had a story about workplace ethics." Sarah laid out the same evidence she'd shown Mr. Morrison. "Jessica Murphy works in family law, helping people who've been hurt by infidelity. But she's been having a long-term affair with a married man, using money and resources that should be going to his family." Amanda looked through the photographs and documents. This is certainly hypocritical, but I'm not sure it rises to the level of a news story. Affairs happen all the time. What if I told you that the woman in question has been lying to her employers, her co-workers, and her family about the nature of the relationship? What if I told you she's been using her position in the legal field to help her lover hide assets from his wife? Amanda looked more interested. You have proof of financial deception? Sarah pulled out more documents. Credit card statements, bank records, documentation of expensive gifts and meals paid for with money from the married couple's joint accounts. Money that the wife didn't know was being spent. And you're the wife? I am. Amanda was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Chin, can I ask why you're doing this? Most people in your situation would handle this privately. Sarah had been expecting this question. Miss Torres, have you ever had someone you trusted completely betray you? Yes, actually. Then you know that feeling of being stupid, of realizing that everyone else probably knew what was going on while you were in the dark. Jessica Murphy isn't just some random woman who had an affair with my husband. She's my sister. She sat at my dinner table, slept in my guest room, and pretended to care about my marriage while she was destroying it. Amanda nodded slowly. I see. But more than that, she works in a field where she's supposed to help families. She's supposed to understand how much damage affairs cause. The fact that she could do this while working in family law shows a level of hypocrisy that I think the public should know about. What do you hope to accomplish with this? Sarah thought carefully before answering. I want people to know who she really is. I want her co-workers to know they can't trust her. I want her employers to know that she doesn't share their values. And I want other women to be warned about the kind of person she is. Amanda looked at the evidence again. I'll need to verify some of this information independently. And I'll need to contact Ms. Murphy for comment. Of course. If this story runs, it's going to be very damaging to your sister. Are you prepared for that? Sarah met Amanda's eyes. Miss Torres, she was prepared to damage my entire life for her own pleasure. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. After leaving the newspaper, Sarah had lunch at a small cafe and checked her phone. She had 3 missed calls from Jessica and 2 text messages. What did you do? And call me right now. Sarah deleted the messages without responding. Her phone rang. It was her mother. Sarah, honey, Jessica called me crying. She said you're trying to get her fired from her job. Please tell me that's not true. Mom, I can't talk about this right now. Sarah Elizabeth Chin, you tell me what's going on right now. Jessica is your sister. Family doesn't hurt family like this. Sarah felt her temper flare. Family doesn't hurt family? Mom, do you know what Jessica did? She made a mistake. A stupid mistake. But that doesn't mean you should ruin her life. A mistake? Mom, she's been sleeping with my husband for 2.5 years. She took money from you and Dad to make her apartment nice for her affair. She sat at our Christmas dinner last year and smiled at me while she was planning to steal my husband. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Her mother was quiet. And you know what the worst part is? She's not even sorry. When I caught them together, she smiled at me. She was proud of what she'd done. Sarah, I understand you're hurt. No, Mom, you don't understand. You've spent your whole life cleaning up Jessica's messes, making excuses for her, telling everyone she's just young or confused or going through a hard time. But she's 32 years old. She's not a child anymore. And this time, I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. Sarah hung up and turned off her phone. She knew her parents would take Jessica's side. They always did. Jessica was the baby, the one who needed protecting. Sarah was the responsible one who was supposed to understand and forgive. But not this time. That afternoon, Sarah went to the bank and opened her own account. She transferred half of the money from her and Tom's joint savings, money that was legally hers. Tom had spent $15,000 on Jessica without asking her. She figured that made them even. Then she went to see a lawyer. Not someone from Morrison, Blake and Associates, obviously, but a woman named Patricia Wong who specialized in divorce cases. Mrs. Chen, based on what you've told me, you have grounds for divorce on the basis of adultery. With the evidence you have, we could probably get you a favorable settlement. I don't want his money, Sarah said. I just want to be free of him as quickly and cleanly as possible. Are you sure? You've been married 8 years. You're entitled to half of everything. Sarah thought about it. What I want is the house. He can have everything else, his retirement account, his car, whatever. I just want to keep the house. That's very generous of you. It's not generous. It's practical. I don't want to spend the next 2 years fighting over money. I want to move on with my life. I'll draw up the papers. By the time Sarah got home, it was getting dark. She parked in her driveway and sat for a moment looking at her house. Tomorrow Jessica would probably be fired. The newspaper story might run in the next few days. Tom would have to deal with the consequences at his job. And Sarah would be free to start over. She was almost at her front door when she heard footsteps behind her. Sarah. She turned around. Jessica was standing by the street and she looked terrible. Her red hair was messy, her makeup was smeared, and her clothes looked like she'd slept in them. "We need to talk," Jessica said. "No, we don't. Please, Sarah. I know you're angry, but this has gone too far. I might lose my job." Sarah looked at her sister, really looked at her. For the first time in their lives, Jessica looked scared. "Good," Sarah said and went inside. Sarah woke up the next morning to the sound of someone pounding on her front door. She looked at the clock. It was 7 a.m. The pounding continued, angry and desperate. She got up and looked out the window. Jessica's car was in the driveway, and Jessica was standing on the porch in the same clothes she'd been wearing the night before. Sarah opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "What do you want, Jessica?" "They fired me." Jessica's voice was raw, like she'd been crying all night. "They fired me yesterday afternoon. My boss called me into his office and said they were letting me go immediately. They wouldn't even let me clean out my desk. Security walked me out like I was a criminal." Sarah felt a little surge of satisfaction, but she kept her face neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that." "You're sorry? Sarah, you did this. You went to my boss and ruined my life." "I told him the truth. What he did with that information was his choice." "The truth?" Jessica laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "The truth is that you're jealous. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're getting revenge because Tom chose me over you." Sarah studied her sister's face. Even now, even after losing her job, Jessica still thought she was the victim. "Jessica, can I ask you something? Do you actually love Tom, or do you just love the fact that he was mine?" Jessica's face went white. "How can you ask me that?" "Because I know you, Jessica. I've known you my whole life. You don't want things because they're good for you. You want them because someone else has them." "That's not true. Isn't it? Remember when we were 12 and I got that bike for my birthday? You didn't want a bike until you saw mine. Then suddenly you had to have one exactly like it. We were kids. When I got into state university, you decided you wanted to go there too, even though you'd never mentioned it before. When I got engaged to Tom, you suddenly became very interested in my relationship." Jessica wrapped her arms around herself. "You don't understand. Tom and I have a real connection." "Do you? Tell me something about him that I don't know. Something personal, something that matters to him." Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it. "You can't, can you? Because you don't actually know him. You know the version of him that sneaks around with you, the exciting version that feels forbidden. But you don't know the real Tom. The one who gets grumpy when he's hungry, who worries about his parents getting older, who still sleeps with a fan on because he gets hot at night." "Stop it. You don't love him, Jessica. You love winning. You love taking something that belonged to me." Jessica started crying again. "You're wrong. We're going to be together. We're going to get married." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. "He told you that?" "Yes. He said after the divorce we'd get married. He even bought me a ring." Sarah thought about the photograph Rachel had shown her, Tom and Jessica at the jewelry store. "Did he give you the ring?" Jessica hesitated. "Not yet. He said he wants to wait until everything is settled with you." "Jessica, when did he tell you he wanted to marry you?" "Last week. Right after you found out about us." Sarah felt almost sorry for her sister. "Almost. And you believed him?" "Of course I believed him. Why would he lie?" "Because that's what married men tell their mistresses when they get caught. They promise to leave their wives, they promise marriage, they promise a future together. And then they don't. You're just trying to hurt me because you're bitter." Sarah pulled out her phone and showed Jessica a text message from Tom. "Sarah, I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe we should try counseling. I don't want to lose you." Jessica stared at the phone. "When did he send this?" "Yesterday. While you were getting fired." Jessica's face crumpled. "He said he was done with you. He said he wanted to be with me." "Jessica, he's been lying to both of us. The difference is I'm not surprised. You should be." Jessica sat down on the porch steps and put her head in her hands. For a moment, she looked like the little sister Sarah remembered from childhood, small and lost and scared. "What am I going to do, Sarah? I don't have a job. I can't pay my rent. I took out loans for the new apartment and without my salary." Sarah almost felt bad for her. "Almost. You'll figure it out. You always do. Could you call my boss?" Tell him it was all a misunderstanding? That you were just upset and said things you didn't mean? Sarah stared at her sister. Are you serious? Please, Sarah. I know I hurt you, but I'm your sister. We're family. Family. Sarah tasted the word like something bitter. Jessica, do you remember what you said to me when I caught you with Tom? You said I should thank you. You said you were helping my unhappy husband feel better. Jessica looked up. I was upset. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. You meant every word. You've been laughing at me for 2 years, thinking you were so much smarter than me. Thinking you'd won. Sarah opened the door wider. Come inside. I want to show you something. Jessica followed her into the living room. Sarah picked up a folder from the coffee table. This is everything I know about your affair with Tom. Photographs, financial records, witness statements. Everything. Jessica looked through the folder, her face getting paler with each page. You hired a private investigator? I did. And you know what I learned? Tom's been telling you the same lies he's been telling me. He told you he was unhappy in our marriage, right? That we never talk, never spend time together? Jessica nodded. He told me the same thing about you. Said you were just a friend from work who was going through a hard time. Said he felt sorry for you. Jessica's hands were shaking as she held the photographs. But here's the really interesting part, Jessica. Look at the dates on these pictures. Look at the credit card statements. Jessica flipped through the papers. You see the pattern? Every time Tom bought you something expensive, every time he took you somewhere special, it was right after he'd had a fight with me. You weren't his girlfriend, Jessica. You were his way of getting back at me when he was angry. That's not true. Isn't it? Look at the jewelry store receipt. The day he bought you that ring? That was the day after I told him I thought we should start trying to have a baby. He didn't buy you a ring because he loves you. He bought it because he was afraid of commitment to me. Jessica was crying again, but quieter now. You're lying. Am I? Why don't you call him right now? Ask him about the ring. Ask him when he's planning to give it to you. Jessica pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She dialed Tom's number and put it on speaker. Jessica? This isn't a good time. Tom, we need to talk. About the ring. About our future. There was a long pause. Jessica, things are complicated right now. Sarah's been saying some things and my boss is asking questions. Maybe we should take a break for a while. A break? Just until things settle down. Until the divorce is final. But you said we were going to get married. You said you loved me. Another pause. I do love you, Jessica. But I need to think about what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone? What about what's best for me? I lost my job, Tom. I might lose my apartment. I need you. I'm sorry, Jessica. I really am. But I can't deal with this right now. The line went dead. Jessica stared at the phone like she couldn't believe what had just happened. He hung up on me. Sarah sat down across from her sister. Jessica, I'm going to tell you something and I want you to really listen. Tom is not a good man. A good man doesn't lie to his wife for 2 years. A good man doesn't spend his family's money on another woman. And a good man doesn't abandon his mistress the minute things get difficult. Jessica wiped her eyes. Then why were you trying to save your marriage? Why did you text him about counseling? Sarah smiled sadly. I wasn't trying to save my marriage. I was testing him. I wanted to see if he'd choose you or if he'd run back to what was safe and familiar. Turns out, he's too much of a coward to choose either one of us. Jessica looked at the photographs scattered on the coffee table. So what happens now? Now you figure out how to rebuild your life. And I do the same. Sarah, I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But we're sisters. Can't we find a way to get past this? Sarah looked at Jessica, really looked at her. She saw the sister who had stolen her toys, her boyfriends, her husband. But she also saw a woman who was scared and alone and facing the consequences of her choices for the first time in her life. Jessica, I forgave you for taking my toys when we were kids. I forgave you for stealing my boyfriend in high school. I even forgave you for all the times you borrowed money from mom and dad and never paid it back. But this is different. Because it's Tom? Because you enjoyed it. Because you looked me in the eye at family dinners and smiled while you were betraying me. Because when I caught you, you weren't sorry. You were proud. Jessica was quiet for a long time. Then she said, you're right. I did enjoy it. Not the sneaking around, but winning. Taking something you had and making it mine. It was the first honest thing Jessica had said since this whole mess started. Why? Sarah asked. Why do you need to win so badly? Jessica shrugged. Because you're better than me. You always have been. You're smarter, more responsible, more successful. Everyone likes you better. The only way I could ever be special was to take something that was yours. Sarah felt something she hadn't expected, pity. Jessica, that's not true. Yes, it is. And now I've lost everything and you're still better than me. Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Outside it was starting to rain. Jessica, you didn't lose everything because I reported you to your boss. You lost everything because you made bad choices. You could have found your own boyfriend, your own life, your own happiness. Instead, you chose to steal mine. I know. And now you have to live with that. Just like I have to live with the fact that my sister and my husband betrayed me. Jessica gathered up the photographs and put them back in the folder. Are you going to keep destroying my life? The newspaper story telling everyone what I did. Sarah turned around. I'm not destroying your life, Jessica. Your choices destroyed your life. I'm just making sure people know the truth about who you are. So that's it? We're not sisters anymore? Sarah thought about it. I don't know what we are anymore. But I know we're not the same people we were before this happened. Jessica stood up and walked to the door. For what it's worth, Sarah, I am sorry. Not just because I got caught, but because I hurt you. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. After Jessica left, Sarah sat in her quiet house and felt something she hadn't felt in weeks, peace. The storm was over. Jessica knew the truth about Tom. Tom knew there would be consequences for his actions, and Sarah was free to start over. Her phone rang. It was Amanda Torres from the newspaper. Mrs. Chin, I wanted to let you know that the story will run tomorrow. I spoke with several sources at Morrison, Blake and Associates, and they confirmed that Ms. Murphy was terminated for ethical violations. I also spoke with Ms. Murphy herself. What did she say? She declined to comment. But Mrs. Chin, are you prepared for the fallout? This story is going to get attention. Sarah looked around her house at the life she'd built with Tom, at the photographs of happier times that she'd soon have to put away. I'm ready, she said. I'm finally ready for all of it. The newspaper story ran on Thursday morning with the headline, Family Law Paralegal Fired for Affair with Married Client's Husband. Sarah read it online while drinking her coffee, and she had to admit Amanda Torres had done a good job. The article was factual, professional, and devastating. It described Jessica as a paralegal who worked on family law cases involving divorce and adultery, while maintaining a long-term affair with a married man. It mentioned the financial deception, the lies to co-workers, and the hypocrisy of someone in the family law field destroying a family. The article quoted Mr. Morrison saying that Morrison, Blake and Associates maintains the highest ethical standards and has zero tolerance for employees whose personal conduct undermines the trust our clients place in us. By noon, Sarah's phone was ringing constantly. Friends who had seen the article, co-workers who wanted to know if she was okay, even a few reporters from other publications who wanted to follow up on the story. Sarah turned off her phone and went for a walk. She needed to think, to process everything that had happened. The last few weeks had been like a hurricane, and now she was standing in the aftermath trying to figure out what was left. When she got back to her house, Tom's car was in the driveway. He was sitting on the porch steps, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Sarah, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say. Please? Just give me 5 minutes. Sarah unlocked her door but didn't invite him in. Tom followed her anyway. I saw the newspaper article, he said. I figured you would. My boss called me into his office this morning. He wanted to know if the story was true, if I was the married man in the article. Sarah turned around. What did you tell him? The truth. That I screwed up. That I made the biggest mistake of my life. And? He's not firing me, but I'm being transferred to a different department. Less responsibility, less pay. And he made it clear that any future incidents would result in termination. Sarah nodded. I'm sorry that happened. Are you? Because it feels like you wanted everyone to suffer for what I did. Sarah felt her temper flare. Tom, you had an affair with my sister for 2.5 years. You spent our money on her, you lied to me constantly, and you were planning to leave me for her. What exactly did you think was going to happen when I found out? I thought we could work it out. I thought you'd want to save our marriage. Did you want to save our marriage when you were sleeping with Jessica? Tom sat down heavily on her couch. No. I wanted out. I was miserable, Sarah. I felt trapped. It hurt to hear, but Sarah appreciated the honesty. Then why are you here now? Jessica told me you're having second thoughts. Because I realized what I was giving up. You, this house, our life together. Jessica, she's not who I thought she was. Sarah almost laughed. What do you mean? When she lost her job, she completely fell apart. She called me crying, begging me to fix things for her. She wanted me to go to her boss and lie to say the whole thing was made up. When I said I couldn't do that, she got angry. Really angry. Angry how? She said if I didn't help her, she'd tell everyone that I forced her into the affair. That I manipulated her, that she was the victim. Sarah sat down across from Tom. And you believed her? I don't know. Maybe. She was so different from the woman I thought I knew. Desperate and mean and showing you who she really is? Tom nodded. I think so. And it made me realize that I never really knew her at all. I was in love with the idea of her, with the excitement of something new and forbidden. But the real Jessica? She's not someone I want to spend my life with. Sarah felt a weird mix of vindication and sadness. So you want to come back to me? Because Jessica turned out to be disappointing? No, that's not. I mean, yes, but not just because of that. Because I realized that what we had was real. It wasn't exciting or forbidden, but it was honest and solid and safe. Tom looked up. Yeah, safe. But I don't think that's a bad thing anymore. Sarah studied her husband's face. He looked sincere, remorseful, maybe even heartbroken. A few weeks ago, she would have been relieved to hear him say these things. Now she just felt tired. Tom, do you remember what you told me when I asked why you chose Jessica? I said she made me feel alive. And I made you feel safe. Do you know what you made me feel? Tom shook his head. Stupid. For 2.5 years, I made excuses for why you were distant, why you didn't want to spend time with me, why you seemed like a stranger. I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't interesting enough, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't enough. Sarah, that's not dash. Let me finish. You made me feel like I was failing at the most important thing in my life. Like I was boring and predictable and not worth fighting for. And the whole time, you were with my sister, probably laughing about how clueless I was. Tom's face went red. We never laughed about you. Didn't you? Never made jokes about the boring wife at home while you were out having fun? Tom was quiet. That's what I thought. Sarah stood up and walked to the window. Tom, I'm glad you realized that Jessica isn't who you thought she was. But I've realized something too. You're not who I thought you were either. What do you mean? I thought you were honest. I thought you were loyal. I thought you were someone who would keep his promises. But you're not. You're someone who lies for years, who spends his family's money on another woman, who abandons his mistress the minute things get difficult. I made mistakes, but I'm not a bad person. Sarah turned around. Tom, you're not evil. But you're not the man I married. That man wouldn't have done what you did. That man would have talked to me if he was unhappy. That man would have asked for a divorce if he wanted out. That man wouldn't have betrayed me with my own sister. Tom stood up. So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just throwing it away? I'm not throwing it away. You threw it away when you started sleeping with Jessica. I'm just accepting that it's gone. Sarah, please. I know I hurt you, but we can get past this. We can go to counseling, we can rebuild trust dash. Tom, stop. Just stop. Sarah felt exhausted. Do you know what the worst part of all this is? It's not that you had an affair. It's not even that it was with Jessica. It's that you wasted 2.5 years of my life. 2.5 years when I could have been with someone who actually wanted to be with me. I did want to be with you. No, you didn't. You wanted to be with her. You just didn't have the courage to leave me. Tom was quiet for a long time. Then he said, what if I could prove to you that I've changed? What if I could show you that I want to be the man you married? Sarah looked at him, this man she'd loved for so long, and felt nothing but sadness. Tom, the man I married never would have needed to change. He was already the person I needed him to be. So you won't even try? I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. I don't trust you anymore and I don't love you the way I used to. Maybe someday I could forgive you, but I can't forget what you did. And I can't spend the rest of my life wondering if you're lying to me again. Tom sat back down and put his head in his hands. I've lost everything, haven't I? You, Jessica, my job. You haven't lost your job. The transfer is basically a demotion. And my reputation at work is ruined. Everyone knows what I did. Sarah felt a flicker of sympathy, but it passed quickly. Tom, those are consequences. They're what happens when you make bad choices. And there's no way back? No way to fix this. Sarah thought about it. Maybe there's a way for you to fix yourself. To figure out why you did what you did and make sure you never do it again. But there's no way to fix us. Tom looked up at her. I really loved you, Sarah. I know it doesn't seem like it now, but I did. I know you did. And I loved you too. But love isn't enough if you can't be trusted. After Tom left, Sarah sat in her quiet house and felt something she hadn't expected, relief. Not just because the conversation was over, but because she'd finally said everything she needed to say. She'd been honest about how she felt, what she needed, and what she couldn't forgive. Her phone rang. It was her lawyer, Patricia Wong. "Sarah, I have the divorce papers ready. Tom's attorney says he's willing to sign them without contest. He agrees to let you keep the house in exchange for his retirement account and investment portfolio." "That's fine. Are you sure? You're giving up a lot of money?" Sarah looked around her house at the place where she'd been happy before everything fell apart. "I'm sure. I just want it to be over. I'll have the papers ready tomorrow. You could be divorced within a few weeks." After Sarah hung up, she realized she felt lighter than she had in months. The marriage was ending, but that wasn't a failure. It was a beginning. She picked up her phone and called Rachel. "How are you holding up?" Rachel asked. "Better than I expected. Tom came by today wanting to reconcile. And I told him no. It felt good to say it. I'm proud of you, Sarah. A lot of women in your situation would have taken him back. A few weeks ago I might have. But not now. I've learned too much about who he really is." "What about Jessica? Have you heard from her?" Sarah thought about her sister, probably sitting in her expensive apartment, facing eviction, realizing that her plan to steal Sarah's life had backfired completely. "She came by yesterday. She's finally starting to understand what she's lost. Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" Sarah considered the question. "Maybe someday. But not anytime soon. And even if I forgive her, I'll never trust her again." "That's fair. Family or not, what she did was unforgivable." After they hung up, Sarah made herself dinner and ate it at her kitchen table while reading a book. It was quiet and peaceful, and for the first time in weeks she didn't feel lonely. She was finally free to be herself again, to figure out what she wanted her life to look like without Tom, without the constant worry and doubt and pain. Tomorrow she would sign the divorce papers. Next week she would start looking for a new job, maybe in a different city. Next month she would begin the process of rebuilding her life from scratch. But tonight she was content to sit in her house in the silence and feel grateful that the worst was finally over. 3 weeks later, Sarah was packing boxes in her bedroom when her doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone and she hesitated before answering. The last few weeks had been peaceful, and she wasn't eager to let any drama back into her life. Through the peephole she saw a woman she didn't recognize. Middle-aged, well-dressed, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. Sarah opened the door cautiously. "Are you Sarah Chin?" "Yes. My name is Margaret Morrison. I'm the wife of James Morrison from Morrison, Blake and Associates." Sarah's stomach dropped. This was the last thing she'd expected. "Mrs. Morrison, May I come in? I have something I'd like to discuss with you." Sarah stepped aside and let her in. Margaret Morrison looked around the living room, taking in the packed boxes and general chaos of someone preparing to move. "You're leaving?" "Yes, I got a job offer in Seattle. I'm moving next month." Margaret nodded. "That's probably wise. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what we need." They sat down in the living room and Margaret folded her hands in her lap. "Mrs. Chen, I wanted to thank you." Sarah blinked. "Thank me?" "For coming to my husband with the information about Jessica Murphy. What you did took courage and it prevented a much bigger problem for our firm." "I don't understand." Margaret leaned forward. "Mrs. Chen, Jessica Murphy wasn't just having an affair with your husband. She was stealing from our clients." Sarah felt like she'd been slapped. "What?" "We discovered it during the investigation that followed your meeting with my husband. Jessica had access to client trust accounts through her work on various cases. Over the past 18 months, she'd been skimming small amounts from multiple accounts. Nothing huge, a few $100s here, 1,000 there. Amounts that clients might not notice right away." Sarah's mind was reeling. "How much?" "Nearly $30,000 total. She was very clever about it, spreading it across different accounts, different time periods. If you hadn't brought her behavior to our attention, we might not have discovered it for months." "What happened to the money?" Margaret pulled out a folder. "Based on the financial records we found, she spent most of it on her affair with your husband. Expensive restaurants, hotels, jewelry, clothes. She was using stolen money to fund her relationship." Sarah felt sick. "The clients who were robbed, do they know?" "We've made full restitution to everyone affected. The firm absorbed the loss rather than making clients suffer for our employees' crimes." "And Jessica?" "We've turned the evidence over to the police. She'll likely face criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud." Sarah sat back in her chair. She'd wanted Jessica to face consequences, but she'd never imagined it would go this far. Mrs. Chen, I want you to understand something. When you came to my husband, you probably saved our firm's reputation and possibly prevented other clients from being robbed. Jessica Murphy was escalating her behavior, taking bigger risks, larger amounts. It was only a matter of time before she got caught, but by then the damage could have been much worse. Margaret stood up and handed Sarah an envelope. What's this? A small token of our appreciation. And information about a position we think you might be interested in. Sarah opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a job posting for a paralegal position at a law firm in Seattle. I don't understand. My husband made some calls. The firm in Seattle specializes in family law, and they're looking for someone with strong ethical standards and attention to detail. They're willing to interview you based on our recommendation. Sarah stared at the job posting. It was exactly the kind of work she'd always wanted to do, helping families through difficult times, advocating for people who needed protection. Mrs. Morrison, this is incredibly generous, but I can't accept money from you. Consider it compensation for the time and effort you put into gathering evidence. If you hadn't been so thorough, we might not have discovered the full extent of Jessica's crimes. Margaret walked to the door, then turned back. Mrs. Chen, can I give you some advice? Sarah nodded. What your husband and sister did to you was terrible. But don't let their betrayal define the rest of your life. You're young, you're strong, and you have a chance to start over. Take it. After Margaret left, Sarah sat with the envelope in her hands, thinking about everything she'd learned. Jessica hadn't just destroyed Sarah's marriage, she'd been stealing from people who trusted her, people who were already going through difficult times. Her phone rang. It was Amanda Torres from the newspaper. Mrs. Chen, I wanted to give you a heads up. We're running a follow-up story tomorrow about Jessica Murphy. The police have confirmed that she's been charged with embezzlement and fraud. I just heard about that. Can I get a quote from you? About how you feel knowing that your tip led to the discovery of these crimes. Sarah thought about it. You can say that I'm glad the truth came out, and that I hope the clients who were stolen from can find some justice. Nothing about your sister specifically? No. I think enough has been said about that. After she hung up, Sarah called her parents. She hadn't spoken to them since the day she'd hung up on her mother, and she knew they deserved to hear about Jessica's arrest from her rather than from the news. Her father answered. Sarah? Honey, we've been so worried about you. I'm okay, Dad. But I need to tell you something about Jessica. She explained about the embezzlement charges, about Jessica stealing money from clients to fund her affair. Her father was quiet for a long time. Dad? Are you there? I'm here. I can't believe it. She stole money? From people who were already hurting? I'm sorry, Dad. I know this is hard to hear. Sarah, I owe you an apology. When this all started, your mother and I thought you were being too harsh with Jessica. We thought you should forgive her and move on. You were protecting your daughter. I understand that. But we were wrong. We've been making excuses for Jessica's behavior for so long that we stopped seeing who she really was. She's not the little girl we raised anymore. She's a woman who made terrible choices and she needs to face the consequences. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She'd been so afraid that her parents would choose Jessica over her, but hearing her father's words gave her hope that their relationship could be repaired. Dad, can I ask you something? The money Jessica got from you and Mom, did she ever pay it back? No. She said she would, but she never did. We were starting to worry about it, actually. $5,000 is a lot for us. Sarah looked at the check from Morrison, Blake and Associates. $5,000. Exactly the amount her parents had given Jessica. Dad, I want to pay you back that money. Sarah, you don't have to dash. Yes, I do. Jessica took that money under false pretenses, and you shouldn't have to suffer for her crimes. Honey, we can't let you dash. It's not charity, Dad. It's justice. That evening, Sarah drove to her parents' house for the first time in a month. Her mother answered the door with red eyes and a tired face. Sarah, sweetheart, come in. They sat in the living room where Sarah had spent countless childhood hours, where she'd done homework and watched movies and felt safe and loved. Her parents looked older than she remembered, worn down by the stress of the past few weeks. Mom, I want you to know that I'm not angry with you and Dad. You were trying to protect Jessica, and I understand that. Her mother started crying. We should have protected you too. We should have seen what she was doing to you. You couldn't have known. Jessica was very good at hiding who she really was. Sarah's father leaned forward. Sarah, we want you to know that we're proud of you. What you did took courage and it was the right thing to do. Even though it meant Jessica got arrested? Especially because it meant Jessica got arrested. She needs help, real help, and maybe facing the consequences of her actions will finally make her get it. Sarah handed her parents the check. This is to pay back the money Jessica borrowed. I know it doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. Her parents looked at the check, then at each other. Sarah, we can't take this, her mother said. Yes, you can. And you should. That money came from the law firm Jessica worked for. They gave it to me as a thank you for exposing her crimes. Jessica stole money from their clients, money that was used to fund her affair with Tom. It's only right that some of it goes back to the people she hurt. Her father folded the check carefully and put it in his wallet. Thank you, sweetheart. But this doesn't change anything. You're our daughter, and we love you, and we should have stood by you from the beginning. What happens now? Her mother asked. With Jessica, I mean. Sarah sighed. She'll probably go to jail. The lawyer I spoke to said embezzlement charges usually result in prison time, especially when it's this much money. Will you visit her? I don't know. Maybe someday. But not anytime soon. They talked for another hour about Sarah's move to Seattle, about their hopes for rebuilding their relationship, about the long process of healing that lay ahead for all of them. When Sarah got home, she found Tom sitting on her porch again. This time he looked different, cleaner, more pulled together, but also sadder. Sarah, I heard about Jessica's arrest. What do you want, Tom? I wanted to apologize. Again. I know I've said it before, but learning about the embezzlement, it made me realize how much I didn't know about her. How much I didn't want to know. Sarah sat down on the porch steps next to him, but not too close. Tom, can I ask you something? Did you know she was stealing money? No. God, no. If I had known, I would have stopped it. Would you? Or would you have just made sure you didn't get caught? Tom was quiet for a moment. I want to say I would have stopped it, but honestly, I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly about anything back then. It was the most honest thing Tom had said since this whole mess started. I'm glad you didn't know, Sarah said. It would have been even worse if you'd been involved in that too. Sarah, I know you're moving to Seattle. I know we're getting divorced. But I want you to know that I'm going to therapy. I'm trying to figure out how I became the kind of person who could do what I did. That's good, Tom. You should do that. And I want you to know that I hope you're happy in Seattle. I hope you find someone who deserves you. Sarah looked at her ex-husband, this man she'd loved for so long, and felt something she hadn't expected: forgiveness. Not for what he'd done, but for who he was. Flawed and weak and human. Tom, I hope you figure yourself out. I hope you become the person you want to be. Do you think we could ever be friends? Maybe not now, but someday? Sarah considered it. Maybe. After we've both had time to heal and become different people. But that's a long way off. Tom nodded and stood up. I'm going to miss you, Sarah. More than you'll ever know. After he left, Sarah sat on her porch in the evening air and thought about how much had changed in just a few weeks. Her marriage was over, her sister was facing criminal charges, and she was about to start a new life in a new city. But for the first time in months, she felt hopeful. The courthouse was busier than Sarah had expected. She sat in the back row of the gallery, watching as other cases were called before Jessica's. She hadn't planned to come to the arraignment, but something had drawn her here. Maybe she needed to see this through to the end. Jessica walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked thin and pale, nothing like the confident woman who had smiled at Sarah from her bed just 2 months ago. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she kept her eyes down as she walked to the defendant's table. The charges were read. Embezzlement in the first degree, fraud, theft. Jessica pleaded not guilty, her voice barely audible. The judge set bail at $50,000 and scheduled a preliminary hearing for the following month. As Jessica was led away, she looked up and saw Sarah in the gallery. Their eyes met for just a moment, and Sarah saw something she'd never seen in her sister's face before: genuine remorse. After the hearing, Sarah walked outside into the bright sunlight. She was surprised to see her parents standing by their car, looking lost and older than their years. Sarah? Her mother looked shocked to see her. What are you doing here? I needed to see it for myself. To make it real. Her father put his arm around her mother's shoulders. We came to see if we could help with bail, but $50,000? We don't have that kind of money. Good, Sarah said, surprising them both. She needs to stay in jail. She needs to understand that actions have consequences. Sarah, she's still our daughter, her mother said softly. I know, Mom. And I'm not saying you shouldn't love her or support her. But paying her bail would just be enabling her again. She needs to face this. They stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Have you talked to her? Sarah asked. She called us from jail yesterday, her father said. She was crying, saying she was sorry, asking us to help her. What did you tell her? That we love her, but that she made her choices and now she has to live with them. Sarah felt proud of her parents. For the first time in Jessica's life, they weren't rushing to rescue her from the consequences of her behavior. She asked about you, her mother said quietly. What did she want to know? If you would visit her. If you would testify as a character witness at her trial. Sarah almost laughed. What did you tell her? That she hurt you badly, and that it wasn't our place to ask you for anything. They talked for a few more minutes, then Sarah hugged her parents goodbye and drove home. She had packing to finish, her moving truck was coming in 3 days. That evening she got a call from Patricia Wong, her lawyer. Sarah, I have some news about your divorce. Tom signed the final papers today. You're officially divorced. Sarah felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. How long until it's final? It's final now. The decree was entered this afternoon. After 8 years of marriage it was over. Sarah thought she would cry, but instead she felt lighter, like a weight she'd been carrying had finally been lifted. Her phone rang again. This time it was Rachel. I heard about Jessica's arraignment. How are you doing? Better than I expected. It felt like closure watching her stand in front of that judge. Are you having any second thoughts? About pressing charges, I mean? Sarah considered the question. No. What she did was wrong, and not just to me. She stole money from people who were already hurting, people going through divorces and custody battles. They deserved better. And what about Tom? Any regrets about the divorce? No regrets. We weren't right for each other anymore. Maybe we never were. What's the plan for Seattle? Sarah smiled. I start my new job in 2 weeks. I found an apartment near the waterfront, and I'm thinking about getting a dog. A dog. I always wanted one, but Tom was allergic. Now I can do whatever I want. After they hung up, Sarah walked through her empty house one last time. Most of her furniture was being donated, she wanted a fresh start with everything. In her bedroom she found a photo she'd missed during packing. It was from her wedding day, Tom in his tux and Sarah in her white dress, both of them young and happy and full of hope. She looked at the photo for a long time, remembering how sure she'd been that day that they would be together forever. Then she put it in the trash and didn't look back. The next morning, Sarah was loading the last of her boxes into her car when a police car pulled up in front of her house. Detective Maria Santos got out and walked up the driveway. Mrs. Chin? I'm Detective Santos. I'm investigating the embezzlement case against Jessica Murphy. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you for bringing this to our attention. Without your initial report to Morrison, Blake and Associates, we might never have discovered the full extent of the crimes. I just told the truth. You did more than that. You gathered evidence, you documented everything carefully, and you made sure the right people had the information they needed. That's not easy to do when it involves family. Detective Santos handed Sarah a business card. I also wanted to let you know that Jessica Murphy has decided to accept a plea deal. She'll plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. How reduced? 2 years in prison, 3 years probation and full restitution to the victims. It's a fair deal, considering the amount of money involved. Sarah nodded. 2 years seemed like a long time, but it also seemed fair. Will there be a trial? Not if she sticks to the plea agreement. But Mrs. Chen, I want you to know that if she changes her mind and decides to fight the charges, we may need you to testify about what you discovered. I understand. And Mrs. Chen? Jessica Murphy has asked to see you. She wants to apologize in person before she's sentenced. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. When? The sentencing hearing is next week. She'll be transported from jail to the courthouse. If you want to see her, there's a room where family members can meet with defendants before the hearing. Sarah thought about it. Part of her wanted closure, wanted to hear Jessica say she was sorry. But another part of her was afraid of being manipulated again, afraid that Jessica would try to make her feel guilty or responsible. I'll think about it, she said. After Detective Santos left, Sarah sat in her car and tried to imagine what she would say to Jessica if she saw her. 4 months she'd fantasized about this moment, about Jessica finally understanding what she'd done, finally facing consequences, finally being sorry. But now that it was real, Sarah wasn't sure she cared anymore. Her focus had shifted from revenge to rebuilding, from anger to acceptance. Maybe she didn't need Jessica's apology to move on. Her phone buzzed with a text message from the law firm in Seattle. Looking forward to having you join our team next week. Your office is ready, and we have several cases that could use your attention. Sarah smiled and started her car. She had a new life waiting for her, a fresh start in a new city where no one knew about her cheating husband or criminal sister. Where she could be just Sarah, not the victim of someone else's choices. She drove to the airport, returned her rental car, and boarded the plane to Seattle. As the plane lifted off, she looked down at the city where she'd lived for the past 8 years, where she'd been married and betrayed and ultimately set free. She didn't look back. 6 months later, Sarah was working late in her new office when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. It was past 7 p.m. and she'd been putting in long hours on a difficult custody case, but something made her pick up. "Sarah? It's Mom." "Hi, Mom. How are you?" "We're okay." "Sarah, I'm calling because, well, Jessica was sentenced today." Sarah set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. She'd known the sentencing was scheduled for this week, but she'd been trying not to think about it. What happened? 2 years in prison like the detective said. She'll probably serve 18 months with good behavior. How did she take it? She cried. She asked the judge if she could make a statement, and she apologized to everyone she hurt. She mentioned you specifically. Sarah felt a complicated mix of emotions. What did she say about me? That she was sorry for betraying your trust, for destroying your marriage, for being the worst sister anyone could have. She said she knew you probably hated her, but that she wanted you to know she never meant for things to go so far. Did you believe her? Her mother was quiet for a moment. I think she's finally starting to understand what she did. Prison has been difficult for her. She's had a lot of time to think. Mom, can I ask you something? Do you think I was too harsh? Turning her in, not visiting her, not supporting her during the trial? Oh, sweetheart, no. You did exactly what you needed to do. Jessica made her choices and you made yours. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. After they hung up, Sarah sat in her office looking out at the Seattle skyline. The city was beautiful at night, lights twinkling across the water, mountains visible in the distance. She'd built a good life here, meaningful work, a small apartment she loved, even a golden retriever named Charlie who was probably wondering where she was. Her phone buzzed with a text from her new colleague, David Kim. "Dinner tonight? I know this great Thai place." Sarah smiled. David was a family law attorney who specialized in domestic violence cases. He was kind, funny, and completely different from Tom, passionate about his work, honest to a fault, and genuinely interested in making the world better. They'd been dating casually for the past month, nothing serious yet, but Sarah could feel herself starting to care about him. She texted back, "Can't tonight, working late?" Rain check. "Of course. Charlie's probably missing you anyway." Sarah laughed. David had met Charlie on their second date, and the two had bonded immediately. It was a good sign. Sarah had decided that any man in her life would have to pass the Charlie test. She packed up her work and drove home to her apartment. Charlie greeted her at the door with his usual enthusiasm, tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. "Hey buddy. Sorry I'm late." She took Charlie for a walk along the waterfront, enjoying the cool evening air and the sound of water lapping against the shore. This was her favorite time of day in Seattle, when the city quieted down and she could think. She thought about Jessica, probably lying in a narrow jail cell, facing 18 more months of consequences for her choices. Sarah still felt angry about what Jessica had done, but the rage had faded to something more like disappointment. Jessica had thrown away so much, their relationship, her career, her freedom, for what? A man who abandoned her the moment things got difficult? But Sarah also thought about her own choices over the past 6 months. She'd chosen to leave everything behind and start over. She'd chosen to focus on her career, on helping families navigate difficult situations. She'd chosen to open her heart to new people, new possibilities. When she got back to her apartment, she found an envelope that had been slipped under her door. Her name was written on it in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a letter from Jessica. "Sarah," it began. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand if you throw this letter away without reading it. But I needed to try one more time to tell you how sorry I am. I've had 6 months in jail to think about what I did to you, to our family, to the people I stole from. I've had therapy, I've talked to other women who made similar mistakes, and I've finally started to understand how selfish and cruel I was. I can't undo what I did. I can't give you back the marriage I destroyed or the trust one broke. I can't give our parents back the money I stole or give those clients back their peace of mind. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see how much I hurt you and I'm ashamed of who I was. I know you've moved to Seattle and started a new life. Mom told me you're doing well, that you have a job you love and that you seem happy. I'm glad. You deserve happiness and you deserve better than what I gave you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to know that I'm sorry, really and truly sorry, for the first time in my life. I hope someday you can think of me without anger. I hope someday you can remember the good parts of being sisters before I ruined everything. I love you, Sarah. I always have, even when I was too selfish and messed up to show it properly. Jessica. Sarah read the letter twice, then set it down on her kitchen table. Charlie came over and put his head in her lap, sensing her emotional state. What do you think, Charlie? Do you believe her? Charlie looked at her with his big brown eyes, offering the kind of unconditional love that only dogs could provide. Sarah thought about the letter, about the sister she'd grown up with, about the woman who had betrayed her so completely. Maybe Jessica was finally being honest. Maybe she really did understand what she'd done. Or maybe this was just another manipulation, another attempt to make Sarah feel sorry for her. But Sarah realized it didn't matter. Whether Jessica was genuinely sorry or just saying what she thought Sarah wanted to hear, it didn't change anything. Sarah had already forgiven Jessica, not for Jessica's sake but for her own. She'd let go of the anger because carrying it was hurting her more than it was hurting Jessica. She folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday she would write back. Maybe someday they could have some kind of relationship again. But not now. Now Sarah was focused on moving forward, not looking back. Her phone rang. It was David. Hey, I know you said you were working late, but I'm walking by your building and I see your lights are on. Want some company? I could bring Thai food. Sarah looked around her apartment, her space, her sanctuary, her new beginning. Then she looked at Charlie, who had perked up at the mention of food. That sounds perfect, she said. We'll be here. As she hung up, Sarah realized something had shifted. 4 months she'd been surviving, getting through each day, rebuilding her life piece by piece. But somewhere along the way, without her noticing, she'd started thriving. She had work that mattered, helping families heal from their own betrayals and disappointments. She had a dog who loved her unconditionally. She had new friends, a new city, new possibilities stretching out in front of her. And maybe, just maybe, she had the beginning of something real with someone who saw her as she was now, not as the broken woman she'd been 6 months ago. When David arrived with Thai food and stories from his day, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: contentment. Not the wild happiness of new love or the security of familiar routine, but something deeper and more lasting. She was finally home in her own life. 1 year later, Sarah was sitting in her office preparing for a difficult case when her assistant knocked on the door. Sarah? There's someone here to see you. She says she's your sister. Sarah's heart stopped. My sister? Jessica Murphy. She says she just got out of, well, she says she served her time and wanted to see you. Sarah looked out her office window at the Seattle skyline, gathering her thoughts. Jessica had been released early for good behavior. Sarah's mother had mentioned it in their last phone call, but Sarah hadn't expected Jessica to come here. Send her in, Sarah said. Jessica walked into the office looking like a different person. She was thinner, her red hair was shorter and darker, and she moved carefully, like someone who had learned to be cautious. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a plain sweater, and no makeup. Hi, Sarah. Jessica. This is unexpected. I know you probably don't want to see me. I know I have no right to be here. Sarah studied her sister's face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like humility. Whether it was genuine or not remained to be seen. Sit down, Sarah said. Jessica sat on the edge of the chair like she was ready to run if Sarah told her to leave. How did you find me? Mom gave me your address. She said you might not want to see me but that I should try. And what exactly are you trying to do, Jessica? I wanted to apologize. In person. For everything. Sarah leaned back in her chair. You wrote me a letter. I got your apology. I know. But words on paper, they're not enough. I needed to look you in the eye and tell you how sorry I am. Okay, you've told me. What else? Jessica looked surprised by Sarah's directness. I wanted to see if there was any chance we could have a relationship again. Not the way we were before, but something. Why? Because you're my sister. Because I love you. Because I spent 15 months in prison thinking about how I threw away the most important relationship in my life for something that wasn't even real. Sarah considered this. Jessica, can I ask you something? What did you learn in prison? That I was selfish and entitled and used to getting my way no matter who got hurt. That I had no idea how to be happy with what I had instead of always wanting what someone else had. And do you think you've changed? Jessica was quiet for a long time. I hope so. I'm in therapy. I'm working at a women's shelter helping other people who've made bad choices. I'm trying to build a life based on helping people instead of taking from them. That's good. I'm glad you're doing that work. Sarah, I know I can't undo what I did. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be fixed. But I want you to know that destroying your marriage wasn't a victory for me. It was the worst thing I've ever done, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Sarah looked at this woman who had once been her closest confidant, her partner in childhood adventures, her sister. The person sitting across from her seemed like a stranger, but maybe that was a good thing. Maybe the old Jessica needed to disappear before a new one could take her place. Jessica, I forgave you a long time ago. Not because you deserved it, but because I needed to let go of the anger. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. You forgave me? I did. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean trusting you again. And it doesn't mean we can go back to being sisters like nothing happened. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to really understand this, Jessica. What you did changed me. It changed how I see relationships, how I trust people, how I think about family. Even though I've moved on and built a new life, those changes are permanent. Jessica wiped her eyes. I know. I'm not asking you to forget or pretend it didn't happen. I'm just asking if there's any possibility that someday, maybe years from now, we could have some kind of relationship again. Sarah thought about it. She thought about the sister who had stolen her toys and her boyfriends, who had smiled while betraying her, who had chosen cruelty over kindness time and time again. But she also thought about the scared woman in her office, who had lost everything and was trying to build something better from the ruins. Maybe, Sarah said finally. But it would have to be a completely different relationship than what we had before. And it would take time. A lot of time. I have time. Jessica, I need you to understand something else. I have a good life now. I have work I love, friends who care about me, a man I'm serious about. I'm not going to risk any of that for the possibility of rebuilding something with you. I wouldn't ask you to. And if you ever lie to me again, if you ever try to manipulate me or hurt the people I care about, we're done forever. No second chances, no explanations, no forgiveness. Do you understand? Yes. Sarah stood up. Okay. Here's what I'm willing to do. You can write to me sometimes. Letters, emails, whatever. Tell me about your life, your work, how you're doing. I might write back, I might not. And maybe, if you prove over time that you've really changed, we can have coffee once in a while. Jessica stood up too. Thank you, Sarah. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. Don't forget that. Jessica walked to the door, then turned back. Sarah? Can I ask you something? What? Are you happy? Really happy? Sarah thought about her life in Seattle. Her work helping families heal from trauma and betrayal. Her apartment overlooking the water. Charlie, who was probably napping in a patch of sunlight right now. David, who made her laugh and supported her dreams and never made her question his loyalty. Yes, she said. I am. Good. I'm glad. You deserve happiness. After Jessica left, Sarah sat in her office for a long time, processing the conversation. She felt drained but also strangely relieved. For over a year, she'd wondered what she would say to Jessica if she ever saw her again. Now she knew she'd said exactly what needed to be said. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Dinner tonight? I have news to share. Sarah smiled and texted back. Can't wait to hear it. Pick me up at 7? At 7 sharp, David knocked on her apartment door. Charlie bounded over to greet him, tail wagging, and David scratched behind his ears before kissing Sarah hello. So what's your news? Sarah asked as they walked to his car. I got offered a partnership at the firm. Full partner, equity stake, the whole thing. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face him. David, that's incredible. Congratulations. There's more. They want me to head up a new division focused on domestic violence cases. It would be a chance to really make a difference. That's exactly what you've wanted. It is. But Sarah, there's something else. Something I want to talk to you about. They got in the car and David drove toward the waterfront. Sarah could tell he was nervous about something, but she didn't push. David would tell her when he was ready. They ended up at their favorite restaurant, the one where they'd had their first official date a year ago. Over dinner, David seemed distracted, like he was working up the courage to say something important. Sarah, this past year with you has been the best of my life. Mine too. You came to Seattle broken and hurt, and I've watched you rebuild yourself into this incredible woman who helps other people heal from their own pain. David, where is this going? He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's heart started racing. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. But I'm asking if you'd consider it. If you'd consider building a future with me. Sarah stared at the box. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring, not flashy or expensive, just elegant and perfect. I know you've been hurt before. I know trust doesn't come easily after what you've been through. But Sarah, I love you. I love your strength, your compassion, your determination to turn your pain into purpose. I want to spend my life proving to you that love can be honest and loyal and real. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined trusting anyone enough to consider marriage again. But David wasn't Tom. He was steady where Tom had been unreliable, honest where Tom had been deceptive, present where Tom had been distant. David, I love you too. And yes, I want to consider it. I want to consider everything with you. He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. Sarah looked at it sparkling in the candlelight and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, excitement about the future. There's one condition, she said. Anything. Charlie has to approve. David laughed. I think Charlie and I have an understanding. They walked home along the waterfront, Sarah's hand in David's, the ring catching the light from the street lamps. Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her here, the betrayal, the anger, the slow process of healing and rebuilding. She thought about Jessica, probably in some halfway house or transitional housing, trying to build a new life from nothing. She thought about Tom, hopefully in therapy, hopefully learning to be a better man. She thought about her parents, who had learned to set boundaries and hold their children accountable. But mostly she thought about herself. About the woman she'd become through surviving the worst betrayal she could imagine. About the strength she'd discovered, the purpose she'd found, the love she'd learned to accept. When they got back to her apartment, Charlie greeted them at the door with his usual enthusiasm. David knelt down and whispered something in the dog's ear. Charlie's tail wagged even harder. What did you tell him? Sarah asked. That I'm going to take good care of both of you. Sarah looked around her apartment. Their apartment, really, since David had been spending most nights there for months. She looked at the life they'd built together, based on honesty and respect and genuine affection. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, married to a man who lied to her, trusting a sister who betrayed her, living a life that looked perfect from the outside but was hollow at its core. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, more careful with her trust but also more generous with her love. Someone who had learned that betrayal could be survived, that happiness could be rebuilt, that the worst thing that ever happened to you didn't have to define the rest of your life. Jessica had thought she was winning when she stole Tom away. Tom had thought he was getting a more exciting life when he chose Jessica over Sarah. But they'd both been wrong. The real winner was Sarah, who had lost everything and then built something better from the pieces. As she fell asleep that night, David's arm around her and Charlie snoring at the foot of the bed, Sarah felt something she'd never experienced before, complete contentment with her own life. Not because it was perfect but because it was real. She'd learned the most important lesson of all. The best revenge isn't destroying someone else's life. It's building a life so good that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. And that's exactly what she'd done.